Hello everyone, welcome back to NTN's live broadcast of the Senate sitting for today, Wednesday, February 10th, 2021. I'm Primus Hutchinson. The motion before the House as follows, that the Honorable Minister for Health and Wellness and Leader of Government Business did resolve that Parliament approves the declaration of state of emergency that was published in the Gazette on the 3rd day of February 2021 as statutory instrument number 27 of 2021, containing a declaration and that a public emergency has arisen as a result of the occurrence of 2019 COVID, an infectious disease commonly known as COVID-19, for a further period of 90 days commencing from the 11th day of February 2021 and ending on the 16th day of May 2021. Be it resolved as well that Parliament by affirmative resolution approves the draft value added tax amendment of Schedule 3, order which amends Schedule 3 of the Act to exempt imports of personal items, food, clothing, toys, and other household consumables contained in barrels for the period 1st February 2021 to 31st March 2021. Bills by the Honorable Health and Wellness and Leader of Government Business, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Amendment is up for first reading. The senators presenting this morning as follows. There was presentation by Senator Mary Isaac, presentation by the Leader of Opposition Business, Honorable Senator Joachim Henry, and new Opposition Senator Lucia. We'll take a quick look at some of the statutory instruments by the Honorable Minister for Health and Wellness and Leader of Government Business. Statutory instruments number 202A of 2020, COVID-19 Prevention and Control, Prohibition of Assembly, number 5 order. Statutory instrument number 202B of 2020, COVID-19 Prevention and Control, Physical Distancing, number 5 order. Statutory instrument number 202C of 2020, Price Control Amendment, number 19 order. Statutory instrument number 202D of 2020, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, number 17 order. Statutory instrument number 207 of 2020, Fiscal Incentives, Sinclair and Associates order. Statutory instruments number 209 of 2020, Public Finance Management Act, resolution of Parliament authorizing the Minister of Finance to borrow for capital or current expenditure of government. Statutory instrument number 210 of 2020, Value Added Tax, resolution of Parliament to approve draft value added tax amendment of Schedule 3, number 2, order. Statutory instrument number 212A of 2020, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Fees Amendment Regulations. Statutory instrument number 214 of 2020, Citizenship by Investment Amendment number 2, Regulations. Statutory instrument number 215 of 2020, National Insurance Corporation COVID-19 Sickness Benefit number 3, Regulations. Statutory instrument number 3 of 2021, the Barclays Bank PLC Bank and Business Vesting Amendment Order. Statutory instrument number 4 of 2021, Value-Added Tax Amendment of Schedule 3, number 2, order. Statutory Instrument number 5 of 2021, Price Control Amendment number 1, order. Statutory Instrument number 6 of 2021, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, number 1, order. Statutory Instrument number 7 of 2021, Fiscal Incentives PM2 Solutions St. Lucia Limited, order. Statutory Instrument number 8 of 2021, Fiscal Incentives Global Construction Management Incorporated, order. Statutory Instruments number 9 of 2021, Control Duties Amendment of Schedule, order. Statutory Instruments number 10 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Physical Distancing number 5 amendment, order. Statutory Instrument number 11 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Prohibition of Assembly number 1, order. Statutory Instrument number 12 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Physical Distancing, number 1, order. Statutory Instrument number 13 of 2021, St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority Seaport Tariff Amendment Regulations. Statutory Instrument number 14 of 2021, Price Control Amendment number 2, order. Statutory Instrument number 15 of 2021, Excise Tax Amendment of Schedule 1, number 2, order. Statutory Instruments number 16 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Physical Distancing, number 1, amendment, order. Statutory Instrument number 17 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Physical Distancing, number 1, amendment, number 2, order. Statutory Instruments number 24 of 2021, Standards, Compulsory Standards Amendment, order. Statutory Instrument number 25 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Prohibition of Assembly, number 1, amendment, order. Statutory Instrument number 26 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Physical Distancing, number 1, amendment, number 3, order. Statutory Instrument number 27 of 2021, Constitution of St. Lucia State of Emergency Regulations. Statutory Instrument number 29 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Suspension of Liquor License, order. Statutory Instrument number 30 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Protocol Public Omnibus Regulations. Statutory Instrument number 31 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Physical Distancing, number 1, amendment, number 4, order. Statutory Instrument number 32 of 2021, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Physical Distancing, number 1, amendment, number 5, order. And Statutory Instrument number 33 of 2021, Fiscal Incentives, Eden Hills Limited, order. By the Honorable Minister in the Ministry of Tourism, Information, Broadcasting, Culture and Creative Industries, responsible for culture and creative industries. Statutory Instrument number 206 of 2020, Tourism Stimulus and Investment Season Terraces Incorporated, order. Statutory Instrument number 208 of 2020, Tourism Stimulus and Investment Progress Palace, order. Statutory Instrument number 211 of 2020, Tourism Incentives Drive Vacations St. Lucia Limited, order. Statutory Instruments number 212 of 2020, Tourism Investment Statutory Instrument number 212 of 2020, Tourism Incentives, Drive-O-Matic Order. Statutory Instrument number 213 of 2020, Tourism Stimulus and Investment, Green Fig Resort Limited Order. Statutory Instrument number 1 of 2021, Tourism Incentives, Kako St. Plessis Order. Statutory Instruments number 2 of 2021, Tourism Incentives, Pink Papaya Limited Order. Statutory Instruments number 18 of 2021, Tourism Incentives, Bay Gardens Limited Order. Statutory Instrument number 19 of 2021, Tourism Incentives, Aldante Limited Amendment Order. And Statutory Instrument number 20 of 2021, Tourism Stimulus and Investment, Darren Charles Investments Incorporated. Statutory Instruments number 21 of 2021, Tourism Incentives Fund Tours Incorporated Order. Statutory Instrument number 22 of 2021, Tourism Stimulus and Investment, Sylvester Ambrose Order. And Statutory Instrument number 23 of 2021, Tourism Stimulus and Investment, Villa Zona Order. Well, we're still awaiting the entrance of Madam President for the afternoon session to commence. Quite a few members on both sides of the upper house are already seated, awaiting the arrival of the Madam President to commence this afternoon session. Just to refresh your memory, we'll just go over the motions before the House for the Senate by the Honorable Minister for Health and Wellness and Leader of Government Business. Be it resolved that Parliament approves the declaration of state of emergency that was published in the Gazette on the 3rd day of February 2021 as Statutory Instrument number 27 of 2021, containing a declaration that a public emergency has arisen as a result of the occurrence of 2019 an infectious disease commonly known as COVID-19 for a further period of 90 days commencing from the 11th day of February 2021 and ending on the 16th day of May 2021. With a motion, be it resolved that Parliament by affirmative resolution approves the draft value-added tax amendment of Schedule Order, which amends Schedule 3 of the Act to exempt import of personal items, food, clothing, toys, and other household consumables contained in barrels for the period 1st February 2021 to 31st March 2021. Bills by the Honorable Health and Wellness and Leader of Government Business, COVID-19 Prevention and Control Amendment, done first reading. We still await the entrance of Madam President. I can see from that the Sergeant at Arms is about to make his entrance, followed by the President of the Senate. In just a moment, the Sergeant of Arms will make the announcement, and so enters the Sergeant at Arms, followed by the President of the Senate. And the session is about to commence.
Senators, when the Senate last rose, we were discussing or debating Constitution of St. Lucia, resolution of Parliament approving declaration of state of emergency. Senator Poilius.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I join my government Senate colleagues to lend my firm support to the resolution of Parliament to approve the declaration of a state of emergency for a further period of 90 days beginning February 11th and ending on May 16, 2021. Madam President, our current situation where COVID-19 and its new variant is concerned is regrettable. It is simply a reflection of the paralysis that we are experiencing in this country today, and by extension, our sister islands and the rest of the world. It is unfortunate, though, Madam President, because what we have noticed over the past few months is a spike in the number of positive cases of COVID-19 and COVID-19 related deaths. A situation that could have been averted had many of the impressionable sons and daughters of this country had not been misled by the false prophets who claimed that COVID-19 did not exist in St. Lucia and that this government was only using the pandemic and the state of emergency instituted in March of 2020 to satisfy its political shenanigans. The real question we should be asking, Madam President, is why? Why the spike? And the leader of opposition business alluded to it. How did we suddenly move from very few positive cases and 0 deaths to recording more than 2,000 positive cases of COVID and 22 so far? Perhaps it might be later, it might be more by the end of the day or tomorrow. 22 COVID-19 related deaths in almost 4 months. This is the real question that we should be asking. That's the question. And who should take responsibility for the upsurge, Madam President? I'm not here to cast blame on anyone. However, we recognize that the countenance and disposition of some of our leaders will evidently influence their supporters and the larger populace, whether positively or negatively. So this is not a time for the members opposite to continue on this or their political pilgrimage to instill in their supporters and other St. Lucians a sense of despondency and mistrust in this administration. Some claim that this government has failed or does not even care about the people of this nation. The government has demonstrated time and again that it cares about the people of this country. Their well-being, their safety, their livelihoods, their health. But you know what, Madam President? At every opportunity that some members opposite get, they will continue to chastise the United Workers' Party government for buying votes, begging for votes. I thought that it was the responsibility of any government to demonstrate care for its people. Madam President, the members opposite continue to base their arguments on politically motivated reasons. That despite the statistics and support of key stakeholders for the state of emergency to flatten the curve. And that is the primary reason, to flatten the curve. They remain entrenched in the view that this government is using the state of emergency to satisfy its political agenda. Having said that, Madam President, I must applaud the leader of opposition business and also our independent senator for the recommendations, some of the suggestions that were made. I believe that there is merit in some of those suggestions, and they will definitely form part of the way forward in combating this war. So we need to give some credit to the suggestions that have been presented in this honorable house. But there continues to be some element of suspicion. And if this is the case, then I can go on to question the hidden motive behind the suggestion made for a lockdown at this point in time. Madam President, can't I not surmise that such a lockdown at this point can create more chaos and turbulence, louder and more painful cries for resources that this government at the moment might not have the fiscal prowess to provide? I can go on to say even more, Madam President. So admittedly, while the suggestion is a viable one, it is one that many countries have used and we've used to some extent, partially, and that's why I'm saying to some extent. A lockdown at this point alone is not sufficient in order for us to reverse the trend. So I understand the anxiety and the desperation of the members opposite to form the next government. We are in an election year. But they should not use this to mislead and misinform the people of St. Lucia into believing that the state of emergency is not necessary and that small businesses will remain closed for 90 days. This is absurd. This is a fallacious argument. And if the member opposite did not fully understand the justification as articulated by the leader of government business and in the press release issued on Monday, February 8th, then, Madam President, she should abstain from making such erroneous statements in this honorable House. Madam President, in speaking with a few young people and small businessmen and women in my constituency, and I'm certain, and the member opposite has expressed the very same sentiments.
Senator, I prefer you use in the constituency of, as it's not your constituency.
Sorry, Madam President. So I had a conversation with some young people and small businessmen and women in the constituency of Denry North. And there seems to be some or a measure of apprehension and anxiety. And as I said, the very same has been expressed by the member opposite. But you know what they're saying, Madam President? Some of them are of the view that the extended state of emergency will not allow them to operate the business at all. They are concerned about providing for their families. But, Madam President, this is not what we're representing. This is not what we're representing today. And as a matter of fact, the state of emergency is being used to further strengthen the enforcement of home quarantine, isolation, and to assist the police and the wardens in carrying out their duties, in a bid to reverse the trend or upsurge in the number of infected cases and COVID-19 related deaths. That is the reason. Not to keep small businesses closed or shut down. So does it mean that the small businesses will not reopen for operation for 90 days? The answer is no. Does it mean that the people of St. Lucia will not be allowed to venture out to work or to bring in some income to their families like they did before when the first state of emergency was instituted? No. This is not what it means, Madam President. But we mustn't forget the fact that there are two pieces of legislation in operation here. One, the proclamation by the Governor General to declare the state of emergency, which is the tool that allows for the institution of a curfew. And two, the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Act, which delineates the various protocols regarding wearing of masks, sale of alcohol, operations of businesses, and so on, all in an effort to effectively manage and minimize the spread of the virus. So once the raison d'etre for declaring a state of emergency has been adequately satisfied, then the state of emergency can be lifted at such time to allow us all to return to the new normal. And this may happen in 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, depending on the actions and behaviors of our people. So claiming that the state of emergency will keep our small St. Lucian businesses shut down or on a lockdown is deceptive. It is deceptive and misleading. So, Madam President, in an effort to alleviate any misconception and doubt that our viewing and listening audience, particularly those small businessmen and women, may have, let me try to be as parsimonious as possible. Once there is a drastic decline in the number of persons who are tested positive with COVID-19, the rate of transmission is reduced considerably, the state of emergency can be lifted and amendments can be made to the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Act to allow most, if not all, sectors to operate. Madam President, please allow me to reiterate for reinforcement. Once there is a drastic decline in the number of persons who are tested positive with COVID-19, the rate of transmission is reduced considerably, the state of emergency can be lifted and amendments can be made to the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Act to allow most, if not all, sectors to operate. Fellow St. Lucians, through you, Madam President, this army that we fight has major weaknesses, and it can and will be defeated. And in the words of the President of Uganda in an address to his nation, and I quote, "It only requires our collective action, discipline, and forbearance. COVID-19 cannot survive social and physical distancing. It bows before good personal hygiene. It is helpless when we take our destiny into our own hands by keeping them sanitized, and may I add, and washed, or by washing them as frequently as possible. Let's obey and follow the instructions of the authorities. Let's flatten the COVID-19 curve. Let's experience or exercise, patience. Be our brother's keeper, and in no time we shall regain our freedom, our enterprise, and socializing," unquote. Madam President, my faith tells me that our God, the one whose intervention we invoke at every sitting of the Senate, is always working in the background. And this omnipotent God, Madam President, is doing for this nation, for this government, the unimaginable, the impossible. The unceasing prayers of St. Lucians, coupled with the good governance of this administration, the tenacity of many St. Lucians, all work together to make us the resilient nation that we are. And I have no doubt, Madam President, that despite the crisis we face, there is hope. There is hope. So we must speak with that optimism. We have to be optimistic about tomorrow. It's not all gloom and doom. Madam President, I continue to make a strong appeal to all St. Lucians as I close to recognize that this pandemic has no control over our lives unless we give it the power. We hold the fervent view that we can and will win this war. Hence, Madam President, I give my unwavering support to this resolution. I thank you.
Senator Sinclair.
Good afternoon, Madam President, fellow senators. In opening, Madam, please permit me to extend well wishes to everyone present here today and to the entire island of St. Lucia, as this is my first opportunity to do so in this new year of 2021, in the year 2021, in the name of our Lord. It is with my solemn responsibility to represent the masses of people of our country, having them in mind, that I rise to add my considered thought to the debate in the distinguished upper chamber of this House. Let me take this opportunity also to wish all of our people who have managed to remain safe and spared of any ailment so far, Godspeed, and to extend blessings to continue staying safe and a speedy recovery to those who have not been so fortunate. To the grieving families who have lost loved ones, I render my sincere condolences. And these condolences go out also to Senator Francis, who just stepped out of the chamber, and the other Senator Francis, on the passing of the loved ones. I would also, Madam President, beg to extend some special condolences to a very good friend of mine this morning. Just before I left my house to come to the house, I got a call from his sister, the deceased. And it's a very good friend of mine called Briggy and the boy Matre of Groselet. So with your blessings, I would like to extend special condolences to his family, especially Christine, who reached out and called me. Now to the first item on our order paper here today, Madam President, the COVID-19 pandemic's influence on the 90-day state of emergency, a period of extension being supposedly sought herein for its abatement and eventual eradication from our shores. If you allow me kindly, again, Madam President, I will focus here today not on the medical and scientific aspect of the pandemic, the dreaded virus, which has been cited as the main reason for the extension of the state of emergency. When I speak of these medical and scientific aspects, I speak about non-pharmaceutical interventions better known as NPIs, the derivative of the R rate, and those of us who do the maths, the delta R, which is the change in the rate of the transmission, the Z or Z factor, or the Z score rather, the measure of effectiveness as determined by various methods of analysis. Instead, Madam President, I will, with your tolerance, discuss a few very relevant and simplified approaches, which, if properly implemented, may very well obviate or reduce the suggested 90-day period, which we speak about presently, of the proposed state of emergency in order to achieve our national objective. So, Madam President, as already articulated by my fellow lead senator and support from Senator Jawai, I would like to reinforce, but also by introduction, I would like to draw to the attention of the Honorable House 7-point plan yet to be formally adopted, but was advocated by our party's leader, the Honorable Philip J. Pierre. And these are, I will actually point them out, 7-point plan. One, and for those who are taking notes, I will outline all of the plans. One, to expand the testing. And we still get back to the issue of testing, which at pains of being admonished again. Testing, testing, testing. Expand the testing.
Senator, be reminded that this plan was already discussed in this chamber on this bill.
Yes, but I will go on to outline the 7-point plan, which has never been...
So, proceed, but we don't want continuous repetition of the same things already discussed.
I understand that, Madam President, but I want to particularly itemize that 7-point plan because it has never been done before in this honorable chamber. I want to point them out because I think it's a good source.
Leader of government, leader of opposition business did speak to various points in the plan and he itemized them, not the entire plan. That's why I'm saying.
Well, I want to particularly...
That's why I'm saying to proceed. But be mindful that it has already been discussed.
That has already been mentioned, but I want to expand on them in detail, Madam President. If
Proceed,
you will,
Senator, proceed.
yes. To expand the treatment capacity. But enough of this petty back and forth the last time in the lower house as far as what is in box and what is on standby. When something is on standby, it means that it's ready for use. On standby. As the good Scout's motto said, always be prepared. And when I say standby and ready to go, I mean setting up electricity supply points to a ventilator. I mean the simple attachments such as extension cords. I'm also speaking about the ergonomics in setting up these ventilators. And when I say ergonomics, from a technical standpoint, it's a study of the use of space effectively. You can have a room, Madam President, of 100 square feet. And one room measures 10 by 10, 100 square feet. You have another room that measures 20 by 5, which is the same 100 square feet. But in the first case, you would have perimeter walling of 40 linear feet, whereas in the other, you would have 50. So you'd say it's the same 100 square feet, but one is 10 by 10 and one is 20 by 5. So all of these things have to be taken into consideration when you lay out a room to accommodate sensitive units as a ventilator. The third one, Madam President, is to rethink the travel and tourism related measures. 4, to revise the partial shutdown policy currently in place. Number 5, to protect our education sector and to augment the resources allocated thereto, especially to the little ones. Number 6, to quickly implement the vaccination program. And when I say the vaccination program, not as simplified, we want to go into the procurement of these vaccines. I would like to as well join my fellow senator in personally applauding the Prime Minister of Barbados, and I think correctly it was her benevolence to supply 500 vaccines to St. Lucia in the first instance. And last but not least, to implement a robust economic and social relief program. Now, Madam President, I went over these deliberately and pointedly because I wanted to make reference to an international study. And this is why I wanted to actually juxtapose the political leaders' 7-point plan to what has been derived internationally. So we can appreciate that it's not just peep squeak, so to speak. With your leave, Madam President, I will make reference to a document, a publication by the Nature Human Behavior publication on the November 16th, 2020. And if you allow me, Madam President, I will read an excerpt from this publication. It says, and I quote, assessing the effectiveness of non-pharmaceutical, what I just mentioned a while ago, non-pharmaceutical interventions, NPIs, to mitigate the spread of SARS-CoV-2 is critical to inform future preparedness response plans. Here, we quantify the impact of 6,068 hierarchy-coded NPIs implemented in 79 territories.
Senator Francis.
Madam President, I want to stand on a point of order and talk of Section 37(1) and the content.
Senator St. Clair, please take a seat.
Content of speeches. I mean, I'm getting a physiological, whatever word I should use, discussion here. But it is clear what we're discussing this afternoon. We are discussing a motion for the approval of a declaration of state of emergency. So I don't know what about the implementation of ventilators has to do with the state of emergency. So 37(1) is very clear. Subject to the provisions of these standing orders, debate upon any motion, bill or amendment shall be relevant to such motions, bill or amendment, and a senator shall not continue his observations to the subject under discussion. Shall appear. Thank you.
Senator St. Clair.
Madam President, I preface my discussion by drawing the nexus between the main reason why we are going to be implementing this 90-day extension and the COVID pandemic. Yes, Senator? So this, I said, I quoted the effectiveness of non-pharmaceutical interventions. Interventions that could lead to possibly even reducing the same 90-day extension that you are requesting here. So, can I continue, Madam President?
Proceed, Senator.
The said article, Madam President.
Senator, just let me say that you have in fact satisfied me that there is a nexus, but sometimes we have to be a little less convoluted with what we are saying. because we're always not about wasting time in the Senate. Proceed.
Can I proceed along the same course, Madam President?
You can proceed with the same submission, just try to be less convoluted about it.
I will be. It is important for me to just finish the paragraph that I started. Again, it says, and we should listen carefully, in the absence of vaccines and antiviral medication, non-pharmaceutical interventions implemented in response to emerging epidemic respiratory viruses are the only option available to delay and moderate the spread of the virus in a population. That, Madam President, I deem to be very relevant. It's a study that was done in 79 countries, and these were the findings. Government interventions may cause substantial economic and social costs while affecting individuals' behavior, mental health, and social security. Therefore, knowledge of the most effective NPIs would allow stakeholders to judiciously and timely implement a specific sequence of key interventions to combat a resurgence of COVID-19 or any other future respiratory outbreak. Because many countries rolled out several NPIs simultaneously, the challenge arises of disentangling the impact of each individual intervention. To get closer to home and to put it within the local context, Madam President, I want to say one of the issues we can relate to at home is that we would ask and question the fairness and reasonability of the commencement of the 7 p.m. hour, the 7 p.m. to the 5 a.m. We have to consider, Madam President, we live in a country with a very remote transportation system. And case in point is that, assuming that a worker is traveling from Castries to Grace, Vieux-Fort, and the bus driver, the omnibus driver, would have to depart at 6 o'clock to get into the other end for 7. It means that the effective departure time for that person living in Greece would be 6 p.m. And coupled with the limited carrying capacity that we now have of 10 persons on the omnibus, the omnibus driver, the minibus driver, is not likely to come back to Castries. So we can see how this affects the livelihood of workers in remote parts of the island differently if you were to shuttle to Groseilliers. So we're talking about the difficulty that we would all experience in the implementation of 7 to 5 p.m. There are a number of these non-pharmaceutical interventions that I just referred to. And what I would do is to outline a comprehensive list. And I would like the Honorable House to actually take a note as a checklist, because, Madam Speaker, we are at all times focusing on the pandemic, because the pandemic is the reason why we advocated the extension of the time period for the state of emergency. So if you will allow me, Madam President, I will go through a checklist which I think would be very instructive for future reference. And it takes in more than the 7 points that I outlined earlier. And this is from the internationally generated publication. So we can see and we can compare to see whether the advice that we've been given on this side of the House is in fact substantial.
Please remind me what you're quoting from. This extensive quote that you're going to do now, from
Yes,
where?
it's the same that I said. It's from a scientific publication of Nature, Human Behavior, published on the 16th of November 2020.
If it's going to form a substantial part of your debate, it must be laid in the House and the Senate.
I didn't get this, ma'am.
You must make it a document of the
Yes,
House if it's going to
certainly.
be a substantial part of the debate.
Certainly, Madam President.
Is that possible now, or are you going to offer
Well,
it to
if you
your
have-
colleagues after?
But afterward, I could endeavor to make it and circulate
Thank you.
a copy of the House. Well, the only thing is that you have my scribbled notes on it. Huh? I guess that doesn't matter. Or like Senator Francis said, I could always endeavor to circulate it, the same document, at a later time period.
Correctly, it should be printed downstairs. We have the facility
Yeah, well,
in the
I
office,
just-
and you give it to the,
Yeah.
you circulate it to the senators at this sitting.
So we continue, Madam President. I was going to give the full list so that we can see whether our locally produced ideas are worth their weight in gold. One, speaks of the non-pharmaceutical interventions and the considerations to be given. One, small gathering cancellation. Two, closure of educational institutions. Three, border restriction. Four, increased availability of PPE. We all know what is PPE. Four, individual movement restrictions. Five, national lockdown. 6, educate and actively communicate with the public. 7, and I repeat, 7, the government provides assistance to vulnerable populations. 7, again, if you allow me, Madam President, for emphasis, the government provides assistance to vulnerable populations. 8, actively communicate with managers. We all know the influence of managers over their workers, their peers, and they have reach. 9, measures for special populations. 10, increase in healthcare workforce. 11, quarantine. 12, activate or establish emergency response. 13, enhance detection system. 14, increase in medical supplies and equipment. 15, police and army interventions. 16, travel alert and warnings. 17, public transportation restriction. 18, actively communicate with healthcare professionals. 19, airport restrictions. 20, crisis management plans. 21, increase in patient capacity. 22, special measures for certain establishments. And we could put into these special establishments places like call centers, special production areas. 22, personal protective measures. 23, tracing and tracking. 24, border health check. 25, port and ship restriction. 26, work safety protocols. 27, isolation of cases. 28, repurpose hospitals. 29, environmental cleaning and disinfection. 30, measures to ensure security of supply. 31, active case notification. 32, surveillance. 33, airport health check. 34, measures for public transport. 35, increase in isolation and quarantine facilities. And 36, enhance laboratory testing capacity. So, Madam President, this is, as I can very well see, the members, some of the members on the other side think this is a very exhaustive list. But I went through the pains of actually outlining them to see that this is a scientific approach. This is not just by way of mouth or hit and miss or trying this, and if it doesn't work, trying that. So this is a prescribed, a full checklist of the measures that should be taken in order to eradicate the COVID-19 pandemic. I want to backtrack a little, Madam President, because I want to go back to the issue that we had earlier today, and through you, Madam President, I will address the leader of government business on the other side when she said that there was a deficiency of trust. Now I'm going to explain this deficiency of trust. There's a lack of trust quotient generally in this country, not just on the other side. And I can tell you where it originated from. Because we have a saying that once bitten, twice shy. Yes? So trust. And it's not surprising that there are reasons for the suspicion. We go back, Madam President, to almost the start of the session of the Parliament in which we find ourselves. And a simple matter, Madam President. When it came to the appointment of a Deputy Speaker, I don't have to give you the history on this, Madam President. The Honorable Leader said...
Senator, please take a different line. I cannot see the relevance to the bill at hand.
Yes, the bill at hand, Madam President, is the trust quotient in actually adopting the policies advocated.
Senator, you are going back, as you say, in history. I don't think it's necessary to make your point.
Madam President, I'm not intending to debate with you as such, but trust has history. Trust is historic. Once bitten, twice shy.
Senator, I'm going to exercise a little more, give you a little more leverage.
Yes.
A minute or two, because honestly it's not making any sense.
I understand, Madam President. Madam President, I'll get back on track because I think the point has already been made. So I go on to the same extension, the 90-day extension for the state of the emergency. I want to point out, Madam President, some of the dangers involved. Not that you couldn't take and I understand for you, Madam President, the reluctance by the leader of the government business when she states that she wants to have the facility of quick intervention in case something comes up. But you have to look at it from a broad perspective. The implementation of a 90-day state of emergency, one of the things that you can very well find, Madam President, is the preemptive or negative business decisions that may be taken by business owners. And by that I mean, if I am a small business owner, Madam President, and I anticipate that I'm going to have a 90-day shutdown because I am a non-essential service, what do I do preemptively? I may start to relinquish my staff because I anticipate that the business is going to get slower. It's not going to get faster. So it's not only one, there's not only one side to it. And by definition, when we say a non-essential service, as outlined in the schedule for essential services establishments and businesses, Madam President, how do you classify a tire repair shop? Is it essential? And we know what obtains within the local context. You have a flat tire and you go to a gas station where obviously they're essential and the pump doesn't work. Where do you get relief? At the tire repair shop. Advocating on behalf of the females, Madam President. Some of them, it's a bit difficult to even change a tire. So they go to a repair shop close by, get it done. So what do we do with the tire man? Do we send him home or does he remain as an essential service? So it is not as simplified, Madam President. So sometimes we have to allow a little bit of flexibility, just as I appreciate you have allowed me here today. So, Madam President, I'm saying all this and I'm going through the pains of outlining all of these to make sure that we convey the notion that it's not only one side that generates all the bright ideas, and it's not all gospel and we have to take it at face value. We will make a valid contribution to the extension of the state of emergency.
You have 15 more minutes, Senator.
Right on time, Madam. I am just wrapping up right now. So, I was saying, Madam President, so we will put a point of view across that we hope is appreciated by the other side. And it's not just lip service, okay, it was said and you have a good point. But when it comes to implementation, nothing is done. So with this, Madam President, I thank you profusely for your indulgence, and I rest.
Minister of Home Affairs, Justice and National Security.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I wish to take the opportunity to thank all senators who wished me well. It was a difficult time when my father passed, but I think he lived a good life, long life, and so he left a legacy for us to follow. I was surprised to hear the leader of opposition business boldly saying that my father was a staunch Labour Party supporter. I think he needed to correct that. My father is a very independent individual, and so he followed no political party blindlessly. Madam President, after the 4th of October, we saw the spike. We also knew about the advice that was given by the CMO during the Christmas independence celebrations. And we also took into consideration what she said if we had not followed the advice that she had given. And so, come January, we recognized another spike. And she was correct. And what that taught us is that we must listen to the experts. We must listen to the authorities at all times. Forget about the politics and let us listen to the experts. But what did we see? We saw the private parties in places where the rich and famous live. The videos are all out. The Barbados authority indicated that was the new phenomena, that these house parties of the rich and famous were now super spreaders. But we buried our heads in St. Lucia and continued in the same vein of portioning blame to one side or to the other side. This government has always engaged the opposition and other stakeholders in consultations where ideas and recommendations are postulated. At the last meeting of NEMAC, the leader of the opposition was supposed to have been in attendance. He did not attend, but he came to the House and then gave us a 7-point plan, which was again spoken about today. But when you needed him to be there, to show face and to show solidarity and commitment to the people of St. Lucia, he was missing in action. We must learn from the past. We saw that we had to return last year, 2020, on at least 3 occasions to reinstate the state of emergency. We also must recognize what happened during the time that there was a lapse of the state of emergency and the proclamation of the COVID Prevention Act. Famous date, 4th of October, 2020. Before October 4th, 2020, we were castigated for being authoritative, for being too hard with our protocols. But today, persons are praising Taiwan for the same stance. And Taiwan was more authoritative than St. Lucia has ever been. We say that the St. Lucians do not listen or trust our leadership, but we talk about our leadership, and we're not only talking about the Prime Minister or the Ministers of Cabinet. We must also take into consideration the opposition. So when you listen to the opposition and they say one thing today and say something else tomorrow, how does the people trust them? So the trust is on both sides. I have heard senators talk about being able to convince people instead of putting punishments. Again, it is over a year, almost a year. We have been speaking, and we saw the spike. After it was spoken for a while, action must be taken. Taiwan took action from the very beginning. If you do not follow the protocols in Taiwan, you go to jail. I have 2 daughters in Taiwan, and they were on summer break. And one of them quickly called me and said, "Daddy, make sure you send some money because I will not be able to go out. For 2 weeks I'll be in quarantine. And if I am found outside, I will be sent to jail." I had to find the money. I had to find the money. This is what is happening. And then the most important thing, in fact, 2 of the most important things, is one, that the people of Taiwan are very disciplined. They are very disciplined. And secondly, is that the opposition in Taiwan supports the protocols. They support the government at every step of the way. You will not hear any procrastination. You will not hear any decision that we shouldn't do this, and it should be a lockdown, or it should be a partial lockdown, or the state of emergency is too long, and the curfew is too long. You do not hear that. You hear one voice. It is Warren Buffett who said, and I quote, "We do not have to be smarter than the rest. We have to be more disciplined than the rest." That is what is important. Being disciplined in this time of the pandemic. The state of emergency gives us the ability to institute a curfew. And we have decided, with consultation again with the Chamber of Commerce and other stakeholders, that it should start from 7 p.m. to 5 a.m. Based on the number of cases that we presently have, we have to find a way of balancing livelihoods and lives. The opposition and other persons oppose the curfew because, one, they say that it's curtailing the business opportunities, and two, there is a restriction on the movement of people. But what I think they are is that they are more occupied with the general elections, that they want to be out there at any time to be campaigning, but we are the ones being accused of campaigning. The COVID, we have seen, and again the CMO has given us the information, that when persons are out at work and at school, they are safer than when they are at home. There is a case of a particular school where a teacher contracted the virus. And he was attending school, and not one other teacher or a student was infected with the virus because he followed the protocols when he went to school. What happens when he's out there in the general public? Do we know how he reacts? Do we know how he behaves when he's at home? But the school has protocols, and he followed the protocols to a T, and not one other person was infected. Persons are saying that it's during the day that the COVID is more active. But again, during the day when we go to work, we don't have time to socialize. We go to work, do our business, and we're back home. We follow the protocols. It is when we are home, we drop our guard, that we go to the neighbor. We allow the neighbor to come home and have a drink with us without mask. And so now at home, I am under strict restrictions, if that's the right way to say it. So when I enter the house, I must have my mask. I now have to sleep in a different room because I'm out. So I guess the only time I'll be able to go back into my bedroom is if I take vacation leave and I stay home continuously. But that is the price that we have to pay to keep our loved ones safe. At nights, we have no control. And we all know, especially the men in this chamber, that we like to roam at nights. People don't see us at night when we are doing the other things that we're not supposed to do. And so, that's correct. And so, we have no control over the night. And that is the reason why we have put in the curfew between 7 a.m. to 5 a.m. This is not cast in stone. If we recognize that the preponderance of the cases are going down, we can always shift the hours, whether it is from 9. That has been done before. There was a time the curfew was 9 to 5. It went to 11 to 5, and eventually was removed. So it is not cast in stone. School was opened, I said, after consultation. And I think school lasted 2 weeks. And there is no proof that any child was infected. Not one. But we have several reports of children being abused at home because parents went to work. It is a fact. Speak to the police and the police will tell you the number of cases of children being abused, especially our girls, because they were home alone. So school is the safest place for our children. The opposition sometimes is against the curfew, and they give you all reasons as to why you should have a curfew. And then they come back and they tell you that there should be a lockdown. But we say that lockdowns are a luxury for the rich people. That's what it is, a luxury for rich people. If you have money, you can survive it. If you do not have any money, you have to fight to survive. The rich can go to the supermarket and stock up for a month, for 2 months. A poor man cannot do that. The pittance that he gets, every day he has to go to the Tikabawe or Tibutik to buy something small to get home to feed his family. And you're going to lock down. But they don't even know what they want. Some don't want state of emergency. They don't want the curfew. They want lockdown. They don't want lockdown. They want something else. Make up your minds. So there it is. The opposition leader says that between 7 and 5, 4 persons in a house is difficult for you to survive because other persons have upstairs and downstairs. They can travel from up to down. But 4 people downstairs cannot work. But today, in his 7-point plan, he said, have a lockdown. Have a lockdown. Trinidad and Tobago has been under lockdown. Close its borders. In fact, not lockdown completely, just close its borders. Because Trinidad and Tobago has 80 billion US dollars in reserves. They can take care of the people. They can do that. Barbados has now gone into a lockdown, sort of, because the borders are still open. And what is going to happen to Barbados? The Prime Minister said so. We will have to go back to the IMF. Barbados is now under the clutches of the IMF. We know what happens when we go to the IMF for money. The structural adjustments that has to be made. We saw what happened to Barbadians. Thousands of Barbadians were sent home under the structural adjustment program that the IMF implemented there. They are now going back for further money. There's going to cause more hardship to some civil servants. Is that what we want in St. Lucia? This government has kept us safe, has been able to pay civil servants every month, has been able to pay its debts, and be able to keep people at least in a state of not happiness but of contentment. Is that what we are asking for our country? To go to the IMF and to put persons in more hardship? I say no. Trinidad closes borders for 3 main reasons. One, the threat of Venezuela. We know what happened between Venezuela and Trinidad, and especially now with this pandemic, Venezuelans are flooding Trinidad, so they had to close the borders. Their own nationals could not come back home. Could not come back home. But when we tried and we said that citizens coming home must pay for quarantine, what did the opposition say? We are wicked people. And how do you expect a St. Lucian coming home must pay 120 US to go to a hotel for quarantine? They fought it. And at the end of the day, we had to allow our citizens to go home and quarantine, and we saw what happened. They were all over the place. We're not putting blame to anybody, because all of us have to be custodians of our own health. And the persons who they were visiting should have told them, do not come to my home. You are still under quarantine. I remember my sister, Enda, wanting to come to my father's service. And when I got to know that she wanted to come, I called her personally and I told her, do not come, you cannot come. And she said she was coming. And I told her, you come and you will see what will happen. And I called the commissioner of police and I told him that I want him to be at the door, that if she comes to arrest her. My sister doesn't speak to me up to now. But this is what we have to do. We have to take tough decisions. It is not easy. Okay? It is not going to be easy for us to get out of this pandemic. Some recommendations have been made to the government, and I said that we must take it in good stride. Especially Senator Oje made the suggestion that the time frame for results is way too long, and I agree with him 100%. I have not had my secretary in my office for the last 15 days because she has not received her result. So that's why I said, and you all took it for a joke when I said I couldn't get my presentation time. But she's not there for the last 15 days. Okay, so I have to do the Jimmy Flicks and continue the work of the ministry. So that is good. There was a time we had the hotels for quarantine and for isolation. We lost the hotel because the owners wanted it. Government spent over $12 million taking care of the needs of St. Lucians. How do we expect the government to be able to continue doing that? And when we asked persons to pay, we were castigated. We have to be serious in this country. We have to understand what time of day it is. And so everybody must play their part. So the government has recognized that maybe we need to get back there. And so we are now negotiating with some of the hotels to be able to get them back. This space at VH is out of control. We have no space at VH because persons of isolation, persons for quarantine, everybody is going there. Everybody is going there. And so we had to try and ease out on Victoria Hospital. Persons are criticizing Victoria Hospital, but this government has had to deal with 2 hospitals. 2. Well, 3. When I was there. Thank you very much, Senator. All right? And that is the reality. That is the reality. You know how to find money to do these things. Okay? And so you're going to be getting some of the hotels, and the patients that really need isolation will be kept at VH, and those who are going to be for quarantine will go to those facilities. And we do hope that we see a drop in the spike. We have agreed, when the last time we were here, advice was given to us that we use some of the private labs. The private labs are being used. Pressure has been placed on us because returning nationals to their countries now have to get the PCR test. So additional problems arose. We are now going to be using the forensic lab, and the forensic lab will be functional from Friday to be able to do some of the PCR tests for us. So we are trying. We need the assistance of everybody. And if the opposition has an idea as to which other lab that is qualified to do the PCR test, then make the suggestion to the government. We'll accept it. No country accepts the rapid test. Okay, we did a rapid test for a family member of mine, and it showed he was negative. Luckily, because of his symptoms, we decided to take him to the respiratory hospital, and afterwards it was found that he had it. So the rapid test is not as good as the PCR test. So yes, we were doing the rapid test, and that was the advice given to us, but it is not as good as the PCR test. When we decided to have the state of emergency, it was not cabinet sitting on its own that decided that state of emergency must come. No. We got the advice of the CMO, and that was supported by the Chamber of Commerce and persons who attended the DEMAC meeting. This government has decided that we want 90 days because of what happened last year. Go back to the 4th of October. You must learn from your mistakes. And so we do not want a recurrence of what happened October 4th last year. So we have given ourselves that breathing space by asking for 90 days. You will see later this week that some restrictions are going to be lifted on small businesses. We recognize that small businesses are in trouble. The restrictions are going to be lifted off some of those businesses. And eventually, all restrictions are going to be out. The Prime Minister has been adamant that we will not have a lockdown in this country. And I agree with him 100%. So we are going to be relaxing until we want those measures out. I pray that the people of St. Lucia recognize the importance of these steps that the government has taken. I remember the Madam President admonished my fellow senator from Dennery North that she didn't have a constituency, but she's a little better than me. She actually lives in her constituency, so it's her constituency. I can't say the same for Vifford South. But I want to thank the people of Vifford South, because I'm now the candidate for the United Workers' Party for Vifford South. So I want to advise my people in Vifford South that they must follow the protocols. Wear your mask. Sanitize your hands as often as possible, and do the social distancing. The quicker we do that, the quicker the state of emergency will be removed, and all curfews that seem to, the opposition think to believe that is curtailing their movements, for whatever reason, will be lifted. Again, I want to say that this government listens.
I still want to admonish you as well that you are only the candidate and therefore you do not have locus standi in Vifford North, in Vifford South. So if you are going to make a statement, it must be a general statement that you will make to the whole nation.
I take your advice. That I want to say, but my advice is to the whole nation, but especially to the people of Vifford South. So, accept it. And so I want to end by saying that it does not give this government any pleasure in proposing the 90 days. It's going to affect everybody. It's not affecting the opposition and not affecting the government. That is not so. It affects every one of us. And so we have to get together. We have to do like what the Taiwanese are doing. All in. That was our theme for independence last year, Senator. That was our theme. And we have to reinforce it this year. All in. And I think, if, like we said, the leader of opposition business said, let's forget about blaming anybody. Let us work together. And if we do that, I am saying that, because it doesn't matter at the end of the day. If we have nobody in St. Lucia after the pandemic, it doesn't matter who wins the election, who you're going to control, who you're going to be governing. So we need our people safe and sound, so that we can be the leaders of our people. In ending, I want to empathize and sympathize with the persons that, the families of the 22 persons who have died. I know that it wasn't directly related to COVID, but COVID had its part, and any life lost is a life that should not have been. And so I want to sympathize and empathize with all the families of the deceased persons, and let us pray that we do not have any more deaths in our country. I thank you.
Yes. Honorable Minister responsible for Culture and Creative Industries. Your mic, Senator.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I think we've almost exhausted the issue. But I think it's important for me to add my voice to the debate at hand and the resolution. I just want to say that in the last year, as we've discussed this bill, or we've looked at the whole COVID issue, that I've seen many things attempted to be attached to our government. And they range from vindictive, victimizers, people have no confidence in them, they want to blame us. And today there is the issue of trust. Trust has been raised as an issue. But what we know from this side, Madam President, is that he who does not have trust, he who does not trust enough will not be trusted. And that is what we know from this side. And so we remain steadfast in our quest to continue to deliver for the people of our country. One of the most basic functions of government is to create the environment for all citizens to feel safe, healthy, empowered, and empowered in a way that they can find their space and place in the scheme of things in the country, and they can flourish. This government over the last 4 years has done just that. In 4 years, we have done it in every sector. And, there's been a level of development in every sector which has created a consciousness that we can continue to do better. And that's what it's all about. In education, we've had the issues with the laptops. We've begun to put it to rest. And I was really happy to hear from the leader of the opposition business today that teachers are at home Zooming and teaching, from their homes. It says to me that something positive is happening there. They're working. Very much, they're working. I take that point. They're working. They're working, and we're supporting them. With respect to our security, our forensic lab is busy churning up test results, for people. We're working. In agriculture, we're working, and we're working to develop the scientific skills across the country to ensure that we deliver properly for the farmers of this country. We're working. In tourism, we continue to work. Tourism continues to be the lifeblood of this country. And so we have to support that industry in ways that you cannot imagine, because it is the breadwinner, the prime breadwinner. 7,000 people are back at work in that industry. And so we must do all we can to ensure that this sector remains buoyant and continues to deliver for the people of our country. And in terms of health, that's where we are with COVID. And we're working privilegedly to ensure that we deliver that insurance for the people of this country. So we are working. And we're working in the sectors, we're working in the communities. We've been able to pilot our community of Soufrière as a model for all of us to see. Soufrière tells that story of what can be done if we stick to a plan. And that's what we have to do.
Senator?
Yes?
I remind you of 37.1, which is relevance to the motion at hand. I'm not seeing the relevance.
I'm coming, ma'am, because we need to create the environment for us to be able to deliver that state of emergency in the way that we ought to. And so, the important thing for us, madam, is that we must focus on where we are today and how we got here, and the fact that we have excellent leadership and we are realizing what we want to do. So yes, Madam President, in the past, we have sat and just accepted things. But today, we see in the light. We are enlightened because we know what we want and where we want to be. And so we continue to make that difference in what we're doing. So the essence of good government is about enlightenment and seeing the pathway and making sure that it's clear. So as a developing society, we want our citizens to be in a place where they can always critically assess what is happening around them and take the necessary decisions to make their society better. That's what development is all about. So, as we continue to grow, Madam President, because you know we have 42 years in 10 days, as we continue to grow, I'm proud as Minister for Culture that our society is beginning to get to that place where every citizen is now questioning and making comparisons. So we're talking about
Senator,
Barbados, we're talking about all these areas,
Senator,
we're making comparisons.
Senator,
Yes, madam.
move along, please. I'm still not seeing you well.
And I'm moving around, I'm coming. Madam President, 22 persons have died before us. 22 persons have died before us. The numbers are rising fast, and we are in crisis. We are still at war. We must continue to act and act now. Much has been said about the state of emergency, and you heard the eloquence of my colleague, Senator Ms. Polius. Madam President, the state of emergency worked before, and we have all the information recorded in this compilation. It worked before in terms of the transmission rates, and so based on the best practice that we've had as the country that began the process of teaching the world to establish standards such as ensuring that people take their PCR tests before they come to the country. Just as we were able to institute this, we were able to cry for a state of emergency, made it happen, and today we're coming back to the people because all the scientific information shows us that because of the level of interactions that we are having,
Senator,
we
please
need
identify the document.
The document is an update on the COVID-19 response, and it speaks to all the initiatives that the government of St. Lucia has undertaken between March and now with respect to the COVID virus. So that document is available and it can be circulated to all the members here for their information. But everything is recorded in here, and all the scientific information is available. So you can measure it, assess it, you understand, and see the relevance to what we are trying to do. But it's because we have the data, we are pushing for the state of emergency because we have to save lives. And that's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We need the state of emergency to continue to save the lives of our people. Thank you, Madam President.
Honorable Leader of Government Business. Mike. Mic is on.
Thank you, Madam President. As usual, I will attempt to respond to as many questions as possible. But, Madam President, I have to say that c'est pour dormir pour les poules, pour savoir si poules ronfler. Madam President, I heard many recurring questions here today, many of which has been answered. But I continue hearing leader of opposition business asking about the paint at Victoria Hospital. Is that not an irrelevant detail, Madam President, given all what is going on? When I looked at the Victoria Hospital, the state that it was in, after they had already sourced paints to paint inside of the hospital, I made a plea to civil society. And thank God Harris Paints came on board and gave us a very good offer to supply the paint for the outside of the hospital. So I am providing you with that information, fellow senator, so that you stop asking about the paint outside of the hospital. It is because when I noticed the aesthetics
Madam President,
of the outside.
On a point of elucidation, if the fellow senator will. Point of elucidation. Yeah. The context of what I said was very simple.
Senator, take a seat, please.
Yes.
Proceed, Senator.
I simply stated, I have no issues with the paint. I simply stated that instead of focusing on the outside of the building by making it look nice, that there were some more important issues like the accommodation and the capacity to handle the problems inside. So let it not be interpreted or misinterpreted that I had an issue with the paint. All well and good. My issue was the functioning of the hospital was a bigger priority. I wanted to make sure that was clear.
Proceed, Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Thank you, Madam President, but I think I have clarified that issue. Madam President, I heard why we got to the point that we are now. The fellow senator asked, why are we here in 2021 today? And then the fellow senator brought up the issue of the back door. Back door, he says, front door. He spoke about it and then he said, why talk about it? We ought to stop talking about back door. I just want to point out that the senator again opened that door. But I think that we have more important issues to discuss because he's asking a lot of pertinent questions, relevant. How did we get here today? Another senator said we have to take responsibility. Someone has to take responsibility. But Madam President, in all of this, I have always maintained that we have to look at where we are now and where we are going, what it is that we need to do to control this virus. In December of 2020, we were at a point where we had instituted a curfew earlier and the curfew worked. And it is based on what we observed that the technocrats have decided again, and looking at what is happening now, they have decided again that what we need to put in place in order to give them sufficient time to address the spike on the ground is a curfew from 7 to 5. Madam President, the government of St. Lucia did not just come up with that. We are guided, we were advised, and that is why we are here today, asking for approval from this Honorable House to pass the state of emergency. Because it is necessary at this point in time. If there is a need for a shutdown, at that point, when we are instructed, when we are advised, when it is recommended, we are going to look at it and institute it if it is necessary for the time. I've already said this is a very fluid virus. Things can change. Nothing is engraved in stone. So, Madam President, we have to move on. When people are calling for a shutdown instead of a curfew, they must understand the ramifications of what it is that they are asking for. I heard Senator Oje ask for, and rightfully so, he made very important points, very good points. We need to put measures in place for, is it preschool or primary school, or I think it was early childhood education. Very important, Madam President. He also spoke about the litter in our country. And of course, relevant to Taiwan, that our people, the behavior, the culture, if a culture no longer serves the purpose for which it was intended, it has to be disbanded. You have to get rid of it. You have to try and fix that culture. We have gone from one culture to the next in St. Lucia. It does not remain the same. Culture is dynamic, and our people have to learn to embrace the situation at hand, similar to wearing their mask. Pick up your garbage, do not litter, clean in front of your house. Clear your drains so that when the rains come, the place does not get flooded. These are simple hygiene, issues, Madam President. So for us to be saying now, wear your mask, and this is where the problem started. That's why we keep referring to Taiwan. The problem started with people disregarding the protocol, letting their guard down. And when I say that, people are trying to take it and tear it apart. I did not say you let your guard down, no, I let my guard down. I said we let our guard down. And this is why this has happened. People coming in through the back door, we allow them to come in, socialize with us in our society, in our community. I know Mary Jane was in Martinique. She came last night, no flight, no boat. How did she get here? It's not rocket science, Madam President. It's not rocket science. This is a small society. We know who is home and who's not home. So when we talk about the back door, yes, let us put it to rest, but don't pretend it did not exist and that idea fell out of the sky. Madam President, right now, we have a measure in place where you have to inform the government, the CMO, if you are going to travel to Martinique or from Martinique to St. Lucia. So these people that are not on that list, and they find themselves here, we're not going to call out names. It is not professional to do so. But we know, we are aware, it is happening. And as a result, our people are dying. Our family, our relatives, our friends, we are losing them to COVID because people are coming in through the back door and we are entertaining it. We are covering it up and pretending that it is a political ploy by the government. It is not hearsay, Madam President. And we must emphasize that point because it continues to happen, Madam President. Our police officers, our frontline workers, they are under so much pressure as it is. For us to bury our head in the sand and pretend that certain things are happening that is negatively impacting on COVID-19 in our country is just assisting with the problem. We need to take control, Madam President, and this is what this curfew is about. It is about giving the technocrats the latitude, the space and the time to regain control of this virus. This is not a joke, Madam President. So we can be asking for all kinds of other things to put in place. We want schools to remain open. We don't want schools to remain open. We want people to stay at home. We want a lockdown. We want. But the one thing that we must do, the simple thing that we must do, we are not doing it. I said, are people ready? Are we, the people who are asking for the lockdown, are they going to be ready to say, well, I shouldn't get paid because I am home doing nothing? Those people who are home doing nothing, I did not say teachers, I did not say public servants. If you are working from home, obviously, that statement does not refer to you. Obviously, Madam President, I said those people who are home doing nothing. If a teacher is working online, that teacher is being productively employed. That teacher is not doing nothing. The public servants who are working from home, they are not doing nothing. So obviously, I was not referring to the people who are working from home. But the people who are in the private sector, when we close down, when we have a shutdown, and the employers say, you're not at work, I don't have to pay you. Then what happens? But you see the selfish attitude, Madam President? As soon as I said that, oh, my wife is a teacher, she's working at home, and this and that, and so on and so forth. We do not think of the other people in society. That is the problem. Think of the problem as a problem that is impacting on the entire country, not just you and I. And like a fellow senator said, rich people, they can go and buy bulk and provide for a month, 2 months, without having to go back out. But it is the poor man that this is going to impact on the most. And that is why government have to consult and think so much before we take a decision. So when the decision is taken and we come here for approval, it is not for us to cast suspicion and for us to imply all kinds of improper motives, Madam President. This is a necessity, Madam President. And I'm going to outline to you additional measures that we have taken. Because I have heard in this house today that the tests are taking too long, yes. The results are taking too long to get back to the people, yes, we agree. And this is why, Madam President, we have a team from Martinique that arrived here yesterday. They can only be here for 14 days in the first instance. They are here to work with the staff, with the workers in the COVID respiratory hospital, the Victoria Hospital, to see how they can improve on the situation that we have right now. We all know that the Victoria Hospital was supposed to be closed after we moved into OKEU. But because of the onset of COVID, we had to take that hospital, retrofit it into a facility to facilitate COVID patients. This was not in the budget at all. Madam President, this is just one of the measures. We have also brought on board the forensic lab to assist, and Senator Francis mentioned that before me, to assist us with the testing. So they are going to be doing tests that comes from the Grosile Polyclinic and the Leclerc Polyclinic. So these tests will no longer be going, these samples will no longer be going to the Ezra Long Lab. That will release the pressure on the Ezra Long Lab. We have also opened up so that we can allow the private doctors, private physicians, private labs to carry out tests. They can carry out the rapid tests, and if it is negative, then they still have to send the samples to Victoria Hospital for a PCR test. But because we know that the rapid test is very reliable, when you get a positive case, these tests now will be sent, these people will be sent to the Victoria Hospital, at which point the public health system takes over. So while before we were not allowing that, because the recommendation we got from WHO and PAHO was not to allow these tests because of the inaccuracy of the rapid test. But at this point, where we need additional support, we are allowing it to a certain extent, given that we have the Ezra Long Lab to provide backup for these types of tests. We have brought on board the Tapion Hospital so that they will be doing the tests for people who are traveling outside of the country, because they require a test for whatever country they're going into. So this is the type of assistance that we, recognizing that we have the limitations that were mentioned here today. The Ministry of Health, the government of St. Lucia has already taken these additional steps to ensure that we are addressing the problems we have on the ground. We have never said to anyone that the system was perfect. COVID has affected everyone in the whole world. We do not have any COVID experts to assist us in what it is that we are doing. So we are taking it day by day, with the advice of all the necessary organizations that we believe can guide us in terms of what it is that we have to do. I am not going to preempt the next piece of legislation, the next resolution, or the bill that's coming up, the amendment. But at that point in time, I am hoping that we will have had many questions answered with this very presentation here. I also heard that Senator Oje asked about paying fees, CXCs, and so on. And all of these issues are coming to us. We are aware of these problems that COVID has created. A lot of our people are under pressure, and we know because they come to us, they speak to us. So it is not that we are not taking heed when the opposition comes with a 7-point plan or a 30-something point plan, like I heard. It is that most of the issues that you are bringing up, we are already addressing, and some of them have already been addressed. So I just want to ease your fears, and of course to say that it is not that we are not listening, it is that while you are talking, we are paying attention, and we are trying to rectify the problems. So, Madam President, I hope we have all this information here. I think Senator Belrose has a booklet with all the statistics and all the information and all of that from the Ministry of Health. So if you need additional breakdown in terms of who we are losing, who passed as a result of A, B, C, or D, who had comorbid situations, comorbid issues, I do not know that this is the place that we give that kind of information. I think if it is necessary and you are authorized to get that information, you can request it through official channels and it will be provided to you. The government of St. Lucia has no reason to hide anything from anyone. At this point in time, we are all in this together. We all have to try to resolve the problem on the ground, and that is fighting the enemy, COVID-19. Madam President, I am inviting all of us here today as senators, as responsible heads of government and people in the parliament to do what it is that is best, do the right thing, and talk to our people. Spread the word, spread the education. The Ministry of Health cannot do it all alone. We cannot go in all the little nooks and crannies of the country, but I know that my fellow senators, using, of course, their influence and everything in community, they can reach out to these people, not physically, because we know we have to protect ourselves, but they can reach out and try to convince a lot of people that they need to do what is right. In the first place, wear your mask. We will never have sufficient space at Victoria Hospital if this spike continues. No country will ever have sufficient space to house sick people from COVID in hospitals if they do not try to arrest the spread. Not even the richest country in the world, Madam President. We have the United States, we have the UK, they are running out of hospital space. We hear it all the time. So to come here and say Victoria Hospital doesn't have space, and somebody had to stay in the hallway for a number of hours, and so on and so forth. We hear it, we hear you. And what is the solution? The solution is for people to wear their mask and avoid getting the COVID virus. I thank you, Madam President.
For the record, your colleague is Minister for Culture and Creative Industries and not Senator Belrose. Senators, the question is that Parliament approves the declaration of state of emergency that was published in the Gazette on the 3rd day of February 2021 as statutory instrument number 27 of 2021, containing a declaration that a public emergency has arisen as a result of the occurrence of 2019 nCoV, an infectious disease commonly known as COVID-19, for a period of 90 days commencing the 11th day of February 2021 and ending on the 16th day of May 2021. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion, say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion, say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the following motion standing in my name. Whereas under Section 1091A of the Value Added Tax Act, Cap 1542, the Act, it is provided that the Minister of Finance may, by order published in the Gazette, amend the schedules to the Act. And whereas it is further provided under Section 1092 of the Act, that an order made pursuant to Section 1091 of the Act is subject to an affirmative resolution of Parliament, except where the amendment is to customs tariff headings only. And whereas Parliament, by the Value Added Tax Resolution of Parliament to approve Draft Value Added Tax Amendment of Schedule 3 Order, Statutory Instrument Number 84 of 2020, approved the amendment of Schedule 3 of the Act to exempt imports of personal items, food, clothing, toys, and other household consumables contained in barrels for the period 2nd June 2020 to 31st January 2021. And whereas the Minister of Finance seeks approval of the Draft Value Added Tax Amendment of Schedule 3 Order to amend Schedule 3 of the Act by affirmative resolution of Parliament to exempt imports of personal items, food, clothing, toys, and other household consumables contained in barrels for the period 1st February 2021 to 31st March 2021. Be it resolved that Parliament by affirmative resolution approves the Draft Value Added Tax Amendment of Schedule 3 Order, which amends Schedule 3 of the Act to exempt imports of personal items, food, clothing, toys, and other household consumables contained in barrels for the period 1st February 2021 to 31st March 2021. Madam President, this is a simple resolution. We have gone through this before. This is an exemption to allow the extension of concessions to bring in personal items, food, clothing, and other such goods, toys, other household consumables contained in barrels. Madam President, the period of this concession is 2nd June 2020. The first period is 1st February 2021 to 31st March 2021, and it continues to June and into it was from January 2020 to 31st June 2020, sorry, Madam President, to 31st January 2021, and it's been extended from 1st February 2021 to 31st March 2021. Madam President, this is coming as a result of the hardships that we know people are going through because of the COVID-19 virus. Many people are unemployed. We are getting a lot of assistance from our diaspora who are sending goods and personal items to family and friends in St. Lucia. And we are requesting the approval of this Honorable House so that we can allow our family and friends to receive these items at concessionary rates, Madam President. I present this resolution to this Honorable House for favorable consideration.
Senators, the question is that Parliament by affirmative resolution approve the Draft Value Added Tax Amendment of Schedule 3 Order, which amends Schedule 3 of the Act to exempt imports of personal items, food, clothing, toys, and other household consumables contained in barrels for the period 1st February 2021 to 31st March 2021. Senator Thomas Francis.
Thank you, Madam President. Madam President, I request your leave to extend condolences to the Francis family on the passing of their beloved dad. I also take this opportunity to extend condolences to the Kadir family on the passing of one of our icons in St. Lucia. Madam President, also I want to thank senators for their sincere expressions of condolence and sympathy on the passing of my son 4 months ago and my brother 2 weeks ago today. Madam President, in essence, the role of government is to maintain a healthy socio-economic environment. The current environment is fraught with challenges, as we well know, both from a health perspective and from an economic perspective. I've said in this Honorable House before, Madam President, that this is not an environment that is easy for any leader. In the process of trying to maintain the balance between health and livelihoods, sometimes mistakes will happen. And I believe the environment calls for a level of patience, a level of understanding, a level of empathy. It calls for, on the leadership side, an environment where there is receptivity to ideas, receptivity to suggestions, because COVID is new to the world and nobody has all the answers. I think collectively, decisions can be made based on input from the collective in the society and in the community. Madam President, the bill before us requires that we approve an extension of the barrel concession from the 1st of February to the 31st of March. This is in the thrust to ensure that government provides assistance to persons who are struggling economically. The marginalized in our midst who cannot afford to stock up on food items, to stock up on basic items, and do not have the safety net to be able to provide for themselves. Madam President, we would know that assistance and contribution from St. Lucians in the diaspora have actually contributed tremendously to the GDP of the country over many years. Madam, we are acutely aware that since we are dealing with a pandemic, persons in the diaspora, they too are going through the challenges. I have family abroad, I have friends abroad, and whenever we have conversations, Madam, they talk about their own struggles. Some of them are not at work. Some of them, because of lockdown, they cannot move around as they would like. Some of them have lost loved ones in recent times. Some of them have loved ones who are not well. Some of them have loved ones who are struggling with COVID from a health perspective. So, Madam President, we need to be very, very thankful and not to take for granted the assistance that families receive from the diaspora. Madam President, we have a number of citizens in our midst who have family that can provide assistance via the barrels. However, we do have persons who really do not have anybody to provide that level of help. And as we have discussed in this house today, there are many, many people who are struggling. Many people who are having sleepless nights because they cannot figure out how to make ends meet. Businesses have collapsed. Some of the workers have been laid off. Some of them are on rotation. Some of them have experienced salary cuts. And from one day to the next, they do not know how to make ends meet. The basic needs of mankind, the three basic needs, are food, shelter, and clothing. Madam President, in this environment, clothing may not necessarily be a very big issue for a lot of citizens. But food, a lot of people do not know where they are getting their next meal from. Madam President, it's no surprise. I think everyone knows I'm from Soufrière originally, so I go to Soufrière pretty often. I still have family down there and investments down there. And Madam President, I cannot go to Soufrière without having money in my bag. Because as soon as I get there, rest assured, there will be persons, I do not know if they are psychic, but they know when I've arrived. And they find me to ask for help. I have to find help. I cannot give everybody. I cannot give to the extent that I would like to. But every little bit counts, Madam President. A loaf of bread, a drink.
Senator?
Yes, Madam President.
37.1, relevance to the debate at hand. May I have the relevance, please?
Yes, Madam, I am...
It is about value-added tax, an amendment to the Value-Added Tax Act.
Madam, amendment to the Value-Added Tax Act to extend the barrel concession. And when we talk about barrels, Madam President, we're talking about people receiving food from overseas, people receiving items to enable them to survive on a day-to-day basis in this struggling environment, Madam President. So, Madam President, respectfully, I believe it is relevant. But I will build a case in a manner such that I can convince you of that relevance, and I do hope I can. So, Madam President, family members who send food from overseas go a very long way. Because like I said, while a number of us with the social conscience and the compassion and empathy, we reach out and we assist, the assistance that come from the diaspora go a very long way in terms of alleviating the plight of our struggling citizens. Madam President, also, in addition to the food situation, in terms of shelter, I want to take this opportunity to say that there are persons who do not have the luxury of owning their own home, and they are renting.
Senator?
So, yes, Madam?
There is no relevant. That is not relevant to the bill at hand, the motion at hand.
Madam
Please move along.
Thank you, Madam President. I am moving along. I just want to say, Madam President, those who have the issues with finding money to parent, when they receive food supplies from their family overseas, they are able to utilize whatever little they have that they would have used to purchase food to actually pay the rent. That's the point I'm making, Madam President. So I am still sticking to the point that the barrel concession is very useful because it provides much needed help to St. Lucians that are struggling and cannot make ends meet to actually take care of their basic needs. And I spoke about the basic needs a while ago, Madam President. So, Madam President, I just want to also ask, and I'm just making a suggestion. The proposal before us is for an extension to 31st of March, 2021. I've just been wondering, since we have just, we have debated and approved an extension of the state of emergency to May, and we've discussed substantially the implications for struggling people, struggling citizens, whether there isn't merit in extending the barrel concession to May as well, Madam President, because we know what it means as it relates to the extension of the state of emergency. We know that some businesses are considered non-essential, thus they are closed, creating hardship on our citizenry, some of them. I believe that an extension to May would provide some relief such that family members in the diaspora can continue to utilize this channel to support their loved ones in St. Lucia. Madam President, I'd like to thank you very much for your indulgence.
Senator Roger.
Thank you, Madam President, and thank you, Sergeant at Arms, for this pristine environment which you have allowed me to occupy. Madam President, speaking to the matter at hand, and only to the matter at hand, I would like to support the position which was taken by my colleague, Independent Senator Lucia Thomas Francis, that this measure be further extended to May, in keeping with the proposed and approved length and duration of the state of emergency. We presume that if there is justification for the state of emergency, there must also be parallel justification for the extension of the barrel concession to the same amount of time. Madam President, having said that, I want to make the point that the reason why we have to come here and consider reductions of VAT on the importation of basic household needs is because for the rest of the time we are overtaxing our citizens on the importation of basic human needs related to their food and their shelter and their clothing. The same list as mentioned by my colleague, Independent Senator. Madam President, we have said this before in this House, and I believe that it has been endorsed by senators on the government side that we need to revise our tariff system so that we are not coming here momentarily to give poor people relief, but that the relief is built into our regime of border taxes. We have taxes compounded upon taxes. Value-added tax, import duty, port charges, rents, compounded one upon the other, which is making basic human needs too expensive on a regular basis. And this is an old colonial mentality when we were not fit to rule ourselves, or so they said, and when we must tax the natives at every possible opportunity and keep them in subjectivity and poverty. Madam President, these days should be long gone from us, and we need to do better by our people and stop taxing the life out of them because government is inefficient. And it would be far better, and perhaps with the new budget cycle coming along, we can look seriously at reducing the incidence of border taxes, which increases the cost of living for everybody, individuals, businesses, and sometimes government itself, because government pays for services which has these taxes included. And that will contribute significantly to lowering the cost of living for every citizen. And that is a need which will be greatly needed in the days following, and let us hope there are days following this pandemic. We will require an economic recovery strategy to be reflected in the next budget cycle, and I certainly hope that that is part of the planning.
Senator,
and it should include
37-1, you're streamed from the...
I am not, Madam President. I beg to differ, but I am not. I am talking about the economic hardship which we are trying to alleviate by the passage of this piece of legislation.
And we are speaking specifically to export imports of personal food items, etc., under the Value Added Tax Act. You are straying, and I advise you to move along.
And that is precisely what I am referring to, Madam President, the economic impact of taxes, including the value-added tax.
Move along, Senator.
Madam President, this is the substance of my presentation. Value-added tax, Madam President, is only one of the many border taxes which we require people to pay.
Precisely. And that is what this is about, value-added tax.
And Madam President, you would know because you are enlightened.
Move along, Senator, or take your seat.
Madam President, you would know because you are an enlightened person that when taxes are compounded upon taxes, the cumulative effect is to increase the cost of living to all citizens. Thank you.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the first reading of a bill shortly entitled
Rebuttal.
Madam President, I just want to thank our two independent senators for their contribution on this resolution that we are passing here to bring much needed relief for our people. And of course, I note again Senator Oje's concern about the taxes, and I want to remind the fellow senator that we have always made an issue of the 13.5% VAT that was imposed on our people. And of course, that is one of our 5 points, 15% VAT, sorry, that was imposed on our people. And of course, my government has pledged to remove that VAT, that VAT, and we are gradually doing so. So I want to remind him that now we're at 13.5%, and of course it is, 12.5%, Madam President, and of course we are going to continue to reduce on that. Of course, you know by now that probably would have been done if it was not for the onset of COVID-19, but I can promise him that this is something that my government is considering very carefully, and of course he has seen that there is light at the end of the tunnel because we have started to deliver on the reduction of VAT, which is a first step, Senator, Madam President, and of course we will continue that struggle. So I just want to thank both independent senators for their valuable contribution. And I know that we are paying attention, Senator.
Senators, the question is that Parliament by affirmative resolution approves the draft value-added tax amendment Schedule 3 order, which amends Schedule 3 of the Act to exempt imports of personal items food, clothing, toys, and other household consumables contained in barrels for the period 1st February 2021 to 31st March 2021. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the first reading of a bill shortly entitled COVID-19 Prevention and Control Amendment.
COVID-19 Prevention and Control Amendment.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move for the suspension of Standing Order number 49-2 to allow the bill to go through its remaining stages at this sitting.
Senators, the question is that Standing Order number 49-2 be suspended in order to allow the Honorable Minister to proceed with the remaining stages of the bill at this sitting. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Leave is granted. Proceed, Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I beg to move the second reading of a bill shortly entitled COVID-19 Prevention and Control Amendment.
Continue.
Madam President, this is a very small amendment. We are looking at requesting the Senate's approval to amend Section 36 of the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Act, number 9 of 2020. Section A, Madam President, we are requesting that we delete the words 7 days and substituting the words 5 days. That will allow, Madam President, for us to require visitors and to change the pre-travel arrangement that we had of 7 days where we required visitors coming to our shores to have a PCR test valid for 7 days prior to entering the country. We are now requesting that that PCR test be 5 days prior to entering, be valid for 5 days prior to entering our shores. We have heard, Madam President, that people call for it to be valid for 3 days, taken 3 days prior to coming to St. Lucia. But this has posed, even the 5 days is posing a lot of issues. Initially, when we were thinking of having it for 5 days as opposed to 7, that was posing a lot of issues where people were not able to get their test results after getting tested before they arrive in St. Lucia. And this is why we had the 7-day requirement. So now, because of the rapid spread, Madam President, and the spike, we are still taking the chance of requesting that the PCR test be valid for, be taken 5 days prior to coming into St. Lucia. Of course, it is only after we implement it, we really are going to understand what it is that the people in our diaspora, the reaction of our people in the diaspora, Madam President, nationals who are returning home, and so on. But we are hoping that we will be able to assist them and that they will be able to get that test within the 5-day period so that they can come down, they can travel to St. Lucia and get here before the expiration of that test. Madam President, this is really what the amendment is all about, amending the act so that it can reflect 5 days as opposed to the 7 days that we requested before.
Senators, the question is that the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Amendment Bill be read a second time. Leader of Opposition Business.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise to contribute briefly to this present piece of legislation before us for the amendment. I note that what is being put forward is, or being proposed, is to make an amendment to reduce the number of days that the pre-required number of days for testing from 7 to 5. Madam President, I just suspect, I'm getting the impression that we are we have adopted an approach to, whether it's in terms of the legislation or the amendments or all of the steps that we're taking in our attempts to manage this COVID situation. I am beginning to get the impression that this is sort of a piecemeal trial and error approach. And I'll say why, I'll explain why I'm saying that. Before we even decided on the 7-day period or the 7-day pre-testing period, there was discussion on that. And I'm yet to get an explanation on understanding as to why we decided to go with the 7 days in the first place. And we have had a lot of discussion on pre-testing, and there's been a lot of back and forth about that. We went ahead and implemented the 7-day testing requirement, but it was based on what? And now we are coming back to amend it to 5 days, and I'm still asking, what predicates that? And if I listen to the leader of government business just in presenting the piece of legislation, the motion here, she has indicated that we are putting this forward and we are waiting to see how people in the diaspora will respond to it. Madam President, I am a little bit concerned. I also heard the leader of government business say just a moment ago that we are taking a chance. This kind of language, when you are presenting legislation for approval by the Senate or in the House, when the presenter or the mover of the motion or the bill being presented uses that kind of language, you have to wonder, what is the basis on which this is being presented? I mean, we all understand that we are in a situation that is very serious. We all have said it this morning, that we want to approach this and manage it the best way we can. So if we feel that we now have to move from a 7-day period for pre-testing to a 5-day period, I think we need to give the people, the Parliament, and whoever is a stakeholder in all of this, some kind of proper basis. When the leader of government business says, we are willing to take a chance and we are going to wait for the reaction of people in the diaspora, it sounds as if it's something you are not certain about and you're trying a thing to see. Madam President, we are talking about people's health. We're talking about people's lives. We discussed this morning, and while this piece of legislation was being debated last night in the lower house, the news came at that time that we had just moved by 110 cases from 2,027 to 2,137, and the number of deaths had increased by 3 while it was being discussed. Ironically. And yet, we return. I'm not saying that you can change the legislation overnight, but as has been correctly stated by the leader of government business, and I think by everyone else in this house today, the COVID situation is very fluid. And so if it is so, we don't say that everything must be cast in stone, But when you decide to make an amendment or you make an adjustment, there has to be precise reason, and I would hope more scientifically than anything else, to base that change on. So when I hear language like wait for a reaction and take a chance, I am very, very concerned. It doesn't give me any comfort. And even if I wanted to support the move, it's almost scary. So, Madam President, in the face of all of these realities that we have just been discussing from this morning, even in the previous motion, what is it we are doing? What is it that we are doing? Again, I ask about best practice. Isn't there something, another way that we can approach this? Now, my issue is not so much about 5 days, 7 days, 3 days, because there is an argument that some countries have decided to apply the 3-day pre-testing period. For example, St. Kitts, Antigua. I am not, while I encourage best practice, I'm not going to come here and prescribe to the Parliament that this is what we must do, while we should observe and learn. I always say best practice is the way to go. But even if we do not believe that we should move from 7 days to 5 days or from 7 days to any number of days, there is a trend of thought from all of the practices that all countries are trying to reduce or to minimize the period between the time the test was taken and the time the visitor arrives at your shores. In some countries, they have decided to test upon arrival, and in some countries, they've gone to 3 days, like I mentioned. We have decided to move from 7 to 5. It's not just a statistical move, Madam President. There has to be something upon which this is predicated. And I do not know if the leader of government business will wait for the rebuttal to present it, but I have not really gotten a sense of what exactly is it based on, to give us some comfort that this is the right thing to do. And as I said, Madam President, it's not like the VAT amendment. This is an amendment that will determine whether people live or die. So this makes me very, very uncomfortable. I just hope that something will be said, that will give me a little more comfort, and not only me, but other St. Lucians. I know that at this time, the conversation is changing from testing and the protocols, and is now embracing more of the vaccination conversation. I think the whole world is moving in that direction. The Caribbean has started. And I have, to the credit of this Honorable House and the government, I've heard mention of it. So you can see, okay, we're going in a certain direction. But when it comes to this specific amendment, I am very, very concerned, Madam President. And while we are doing that, we have people still contracting the virus. I hope nobody died today. So give us some comfort. Give us, I plead with my colleague parliamentarians, senators on this side. I plead with you to provide us with something a little bit better than that. I am not going to even try to criticize the 5 days or any other period. Just give us some kind of basis that is reliable, that makes sense as to why we are moving from 7 days to 5 days. If there is any specific scientific piece of thinking or proposal that has led us to come to the House to make that specific piece of that specific amendment, and that we will not be sounding like we're trying something. We cannot afford to approach it that way. And this is not just from me as a member of the opposition, but as a St. Lucian. I think I need to have the comfort that this will be done. So, Madam President, as I said, I wanted to be very brief. I think now we are behind the 8 ball, as they say. We are in a bad place. Whether we want to blame or not, that's a fact. We are in a bad place. And we want to, instead of coming to the Parliament and finding ourselves in a back and forth and using all kinds of, tactics. Let's get out of that situation, and give the opposition, give the House, give St. Lucians some kind of concrete basis for that decision. That's all I'm asking, Madam President, and I thank you for your indulgence.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I think, I'm not sure. Madam President, I thought this was very straightforward, so I just, the 5 days that we are requiring, it is making the test more valid and more reliable, more dependable than the 7 days that we were requiring before. Because of the spike, Madam President, we have decided, and based on the technocrats' advice, we have decided to tighten the space between the time that the people take the test and the time that they show up on our shores. So we are just ensuring that we have a test that is more valid than the 7-day test. What I was saying was, prior to now, Madam President, people were having a lot of issues when they get here and they still do not have the test results. And that was a problem. But right now, our concern is about the spike and protecting the lives of our people. So we are requiring that people get here with a test that was taken within 5 days. Now, given the fact that I know the majority of the people that we were having the most issues with were our own nationals, Madam President, and we cannot prevent our nationals from coming back home. And I know that they are waiting and expecting to see what it is that their government is doing in their country. They are following us, okay? And why I said we will wait and see what happens is because we are instituting the 5 days. But when our diaspora, people in our diaspora get here and they express the issues that they are having, you may well see that we have to move to another measure where we may start having to test when people get here as opposed to just requiring a 5-day test. But this is very fluid, Madam President. So I did not want to go into all of what the technocrats are looking at when we try to put measures in place to control the virus. So right now we are asking for a more valid test, a more relevant test, something that is done within the 5 days, and we will take it from there. This is what we are saying, that the 7 days no longer hold. With the 7 days, we are still seeing people getting here with a negative test, but by the time they get to St. Lucia, they test positive. So this is what we are trying to arrest and control to some measure, Madam President. I hope that I have responded to fellow senators' question as best as possible, because like I said, COVID-19 is very fluid. There are a lot of ideas on the table. There are a lot of ideas coming from the team that is advising the Cabinet of Ministers and the government, and we are taking it one day at a time as it evolves, Madam President. We are not experts, and we are not perfect.
Senators, the question is that the COVID-19 Prevention Control Amendment Bill be read a second time. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
An act to amend the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Act number 9 of 2020.
We will take it clause by clause. Clause 2.
Amendment of Section 36.
Clause 2 stands part of the bill. Clause 1.
Short title.
Clause 1 stands part of the bill. Senators, the question is that the committee rise and the bill be reported. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Senators, I beg to report that the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Amendment Bill went through committee stage without amendment. Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I move that the report of the committee be adopted and the bill be read a third time and passed.
Senators, I beg to Senators, the question is that the report of the committee be adopted and that the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Amendment Bill be read a third time and passed. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it.
Be it enacted by the Queen's Most Excellent Majesty, and with the advice and consent of the House of Assembly and the Senate of St. Lucia, and by the authority of the same as follows. This Act may be cited as the COVID-19 Prevention and Control Amendment Act 2021.
Honorable Leader of Government Business.
Madam President, I move that the Senate stand adjourned, sign and die.
Senator Francis, like members of the Senate, and now that I am informed, I extend my condolences to you on the passing of your brother. Senators, the question is that the House do stand adjourned sine die. I now put the question. As many as are of that opinion say aye. As many as are of a contrary opinion say no. I think the ayes have it. The ayes have it. Sitting adjourned.